Clubhouse.
Welcome back to Escaping Gilead. This is for the 9th episode of the first season of Hulu's The Testaments. This one was called Marat Sade. This is Paul.
This is Caroline. This is a fascinating title that Paul and I decided to do a little bit more of a deep dive for you guys on because this is very unusual. We've had some pretty basic titles. Broken, Commitment, like pretty, self-explanatory. This one's unusual. So this is a play, you guys, that is by Peter Weiss. It's a revolutionary play within a play set in 1808 in an asylum where the inmates, directed by the Marquis de Sade, reenact the 1793 assassination of French revolutionary Jean-Paul Marat. The work is a theater of cruelty, that's a quote, piece that uses the French Revolution to explore themes of revolution, sanity, class struggle, and the conflict between individual freedom and societal change. It is a fascinating concept. Apparently, it's known for the shocking, violent, and politically provocative nature, challenging audiences to confront modern parallels to the historical event. I mean, in a lot of ways, that sounds like the Testaments in general, right?
Yeah.
Like challenging us to think about modern parallels to historical events that have happened. What we're seeing on the screen, the idea of a play within a play. I feel like the play performed by asylum inmates is fascinating to me.
Anytime you include the Marquis de Sade as a character,
right,
you're not probably telling a story about a birthday party. So if you look it up, there is a film adaptation of the play whose entire title happens to be The Persecution and Assassination of Jean-Paul Marat as performed by the inmates of the asylum of Charenton under the direction of the Marquis de Sade. So you can understand why they shortened it.
Yeah.
The movie version seems to just be someone filmed a cast performing the play.
Yeah, which is like it's kind of popular to do now, but this was very avant-garde at the time because it was like way back when they filmed this.
I have to admit, I did not watch the movie. I did watch the trailer, and just in the 2-minute trailer, there were, 6 or 7 beatings?
It was very disturbing. Like, I'm just going to say that straight out. Like I said, we watched the trailer, and it was instantly like, oh no. So if you guys have seen like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, there's an inherent disturbing nature of watching something happening in an insane asylum. Automatically, as an individual, you're watching other people who are having mental health issues, and it can be very uncomfortable. It can make you feel like, oh gosh, this feels very personal to me, like in like a voyeurism kind of way. Like you don't want to see somebody having a problem like that. And so there is this whole element of like, we shouldn't be watching this. This person's having a crisis. We shouldn't be like viewing it like this. And so I feel like that alone, the fact that it's being a play within a play of this asylum patients doing it, there's already like this element of voyeurism, like you're watching people who are doing something within their own confines of their asylum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for people who don't know, de Sade, that's where sadism comes from. So
the whole term, sadistic, sadism, sadist, it's all,
right.
He wasn't named after it. Mm-hmm. It was named after him.
Right. So that kind of gives you an idea of the violent nature, the cruelty, the completely unhinged nature of what you would see. I think that the most interesting part of it to me is this idea of a revolution and the role of the individual versus the masses. That whole part to me was what was speaking to the Testaments, and specifically this group of girls right now. The idea of, does the movement have to start and then it sort of picks up people along the way? Or is it that individuals basically get to a point of breaking and feeling like, I personally, like Becca, cannot handle this any longer, and I'm going to act on this? Or even you could say Daisy, like, I'm not going to sit back here any longer. I'm going to act on this. And the individual themselves changes. And when that happens, they become then a part of the revolution, but not the revolution, which tends to be sort of like, in my mind, like ideas and the desire for change, but it is like a wave of thought. But the individuals themselves, and deep down in their heart, aren't necessarily changed yet, right? Like you can agree with it idealistically, like, yeah, okay, I think that's right. There should be a revolution, but it's different if you yourself had this internal change and then you're like, I don't care who's with me. I'm doing this anyway, which is a different vibe.
It's a question that we have wondered about since the beginning of The Handmaid's Tale because of the volume of people swept up in the actions of a few.
Right.
And whether or not there are so many true believers or there's just a lot of people that don't want to get shot.
And a little bit, I think we have had little nuggets when we do get people's backstory where you realize that individuals changed. Like Lydia wasn't that person and she wasn't swept up by ideals and a movement or whatever. No, that's not what happened. She herself went through a trauma and had this awful, awful, awful experience where she had this individual moment of breaking where then she became a part of this Gilead world. So you can look at revolution as like good and bad too, right? Like there's revolution that where good things are happening and there's also things that happen where bad things are going to happen.
I don't feel very strongly that it's the masses. I feel like the masses are sort of like a snowball effect of the individuals. I mean, we've seen so many examples in very recent history, in very real life, where there seems to be an ideal that a group of people wants to uphold. But then when people start to question those individuals, like, why are you actually here doing this? More than not, the answer is like, I don't know. I'm not sure why I'm for this, but I'm here.
I think a lot of times it's that they agree with the idea of it, but it doesn't necessarily affect them. And so that's different than being the aggrieved party in a completely different way. If you were the one that actually experienced the trauma and then you act, it's different than you hearing about people having trauma and you're like, well, I disagree with that, so I'm going to join the fight. But you're not really invested in the same way. And
right,
that's where I'm going with the idea that we're seeing these individuals become invested because of their trauma, because of what they've witnessed, because of how they feel, regardless if anyone else acts. It doesn't matter to Becca if everyone else agrees that this should be the outcome for her father. It doesn't matter to Daisy if anyone agrees with this is how the dentist should be called out. It doesn't matter anymore what anyone else does. That's not how the masses work. You know, the masses, everybody's got to be sort of grouping up together, doing the thing together, coordinating together, and you do rely on each other to do their parts. When the individuals sort of lose it and say, like, enough is enough is enough, and there is this whole line between sanity and madness and everything within this play. So I feel like I'm not wrong in using like colloquialisms like losing it, because it's like there's a part of you where that has to break inside your mind to say, like, I cannot and will not do this anymore, whatever this is. So I'm going with individuals if that's, you know, and listeners, what do you think? I mean, does change happen? Does revolution happen because individual people experience something and then they break themselves and then they act? Or is it sort of a coordinated effort to start with and then people sort of buy in after the fact? Which one is more effective, I guess I want to say, or which one tends to actually enact change?
And all that ties into the themes. Like, I am not someone that in reading or watching detects themes just like automatically, like a student in a literature class. It have to be pretty like obvious. And in this episode, it was pretty obvious when you say like there was this theme of vengeance and where does it end when you start applying it? Because if you apply vengeance to somebody who wronged you, then someone who cares about them might feel like they have a right to enact vengeance upon you, right? So it's got no, it's not even a circle. It's like a Mobius, you know, it just feeds itself.
Well, it's the eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, right? It's like, where do you stop? When's the last eye that you take, you know, because everybody did something to somebody else. And so where does it end? And I bet it was a good question.
Given the little bit that we know about that play, I bet there's vengeance throughout.
Oh God, I guarantee you guys just like I said, the two of us were not willing to go deep dive on this for you guys. We were willing to dip our toe. As soon as I saw things like shocking imagery and the this was interesting to me. It says it combines historical drama with avant-garde techniques, including songs and dance and shocking imagery. that grabs my attention, and I'm like, what is this? But the shocking imagery, I know my own self, and I know that Caroline does not enjoy when imagery gets too shocking. So I was like, this is probably not for me, but I will watch the trailer. Even if you look at the poster, the person's face that is like dead center is making this like Joker, huge mouth kind of scream that already I'm like, not for me. I can't watch this. But I think if you are a person who, you're like, I want to see this for art's sake, I want to understand more. I am somebody who really enjoys really pushing the boundaries of like what you think is cinema or anything like that. Please watch it and come back and tell us what you think and how does it compare.
The other major thing that I picked up on was sacrifice. Initially, we have Daisy sacrificing her secret so that she can protect the other girls. We have, obviously, Becca sacrificing her future, her father, to protect Agnes. She would do anything for Agnes. There's a lot of people trading very, very real consequences for taking action.
I don't think the consequences even come into play. That's not a thing. It's that I cannot abide by what's going on for 1 second longer. And I'm going to act. And whatever happens after that, it's almost like it's how like you can think of an idea and then there's just sort of like a drop off, where you're like, well, I've thought it through this far, but then after that, it's just sort of black, like I don't have anything after that about what's going to happen.
I'm familiar with that way of thinking. Yes.
That's how it feels. It feels like all they thought, both Daisy and Becca, were I must act. And what happens after that actually doesn't matter in a lot of ways. I just know that I have to stop what's happening right now.
This episode is mostly told from Daisy's point of view because she's our voiceover narrator. However, we got a lot of time spent with both Agnes and Becca. This is also the first time that I can remember seeing the black robe-clad eye abduction team.
Yeah, and you know what was interesting about that? Of course, we're going to hit it at the end of Becca, but the fact that from everything that I could tell, it looked like they were all women in those outfits.
Their body types and movements.
It just looked like women to me.
It looked like women or dancers, maybe, because they were so smooth in the way they choreographed around the fountain and the way their robes moved. And, I mean, before.
But their physiques and everything, like how lean they were and just everything. Like
their build.
You could tell that they were female. That's fascinating to me, though, because the eyes have never been portrayed as females in any form or fashion. So this seems like something different. It's different than just men coming up with machine guns and their, black G.I. Joe outfits. Like, this is not that. This is something else. And it's something that you have brought up the concept of. And I think, again, going back to this play, the idea of, is there something like an insane asylum that exists? Is there something that maybe Talia, when they brought her up as like, oh, hey, where did Talia go? Like, that was brought up recently. I wonder if there is a place. And I know you were going to talk to us a little bit more about what's in the book.
What you were saying just now made me think of what you were getting at, but kind of intermediately. I was wondering if the women in the robes were actually ants sent to either intercept her or as part of what we're thinking of as this asylum. It's not necessarily asylum, but it is a place in the book where wives are sent to recover from whatever it is that they need recovering from. And a lot of times what they're recovering from is their husband has gotten tired of them.
Oh.
Yeah. It's implied in the book that the majority of the women that go there don't actually recover. Their treatment overwhelms
really just
them.
Like a holding area, right? It's just taking them out of society.
But the end result is a lot of them die. So
Right. Well, and we want to be super clear. We are very sensitive about mental health. We're not trying to speak about any of this kind of stuff in a flippant way. When I say words like insane asylum,
we're talking about the context of this country, Gilead, where things aren't.
And I'm speaking in terms of like what I'm reading about the play and stuff and how they're talking about it. And so I'm using terminology that they're using. So please don't get offended about any of those types of things. We're very sensitive about mental health. It is curious, though. It is curious about who came and got Becca, because it is not the normal guards. It's not the people who came and got Talia. And so what does that mean? And maybe they were interceding. And I also just want to throw this out there because, or we didn't talk about this very much in the last episode, or maybe even at all. We had that 2-second moment with Penny in the last episode where she looked really worn down, very clear that everything that has happened to her with the miscarriages has taken a toll. And the reason why I bring that up is because between Talia, Penny, and now Becca, is this going to give us an entire group that is in this place, whatever this institutionalized place is? Could Penny be ended up over there because she is in depression? She is having all the issues that are going on. I assume some sort of like postpartum depression, but also just the sadness and the heartbreak of losing children, and this bigger feeling that Shu gave words to with like, this is why you're on the planet. And like, if you're not fulfilling this childbearing prophecy for yourself all the time, everybody's supposed to just be like making babies all the time, then who are you and what's your purpose and what are you doing here and all of that? And so would that sort of drive you to start feeling like you can't handle life anymore? So I'm wondering though, if they're setting up a group that's going to be over there.
Well, I've been wondering that about the ants, just because of the book influence and how many of them become ants, and that doesn't seem to be the way that they're approaching that issue quickly in the show, but that doesn't mean that that's not where they're ending up. Like Becca winds up an ant
in the book.
Yeah. And I could see where if these are actually Aunt Lydia's agents dressed in black sent to get her, we've spoken in previous episodes about maybe Daisy winds up in Aunt's school to protect her from something. Well, that's not how that turned out to be, but kind of the women's only place of the Aunt existence is a way to protect those that they think are worth protecting. I'm
definitely willing to go with the idea that that this group that came and got Becca is way more than meets the eye. Is not just, and like, I didn't mean to make it like a like a pun there, but like, it's not just the eyes. There's something else. The way that they were dressed, and it's scary, the terms that I'm going to use, like, I thought they looked like executioners. You're right that there was a dance choreographed element to the whole thing. There was also kind of like this vampire-y kind of element to them. There was...
Yeah, like Dementors, like Wraiths. Like I told you, it looked like Ghostface from Scream a little bit.
Yep, all the things. That none of that lines up with anything that we've seen thus far. And so I'm just extremely piqued my interest in terms of like, what is this? And the fact that Garth, the like 20-year-old, came alone as the sole man who is like going to be leading up this charge. Like, I'm sus. Like, is this a Mayday situation where they're just using the truck, which we've seen before? Handmaids used the white van at the end of season 1 and took her away in the white van, right?
Yeah.
And so like, could a truck be being used to look like the government's taking her away when maybe it's not the government taking her away? Maybe it's Mayday. Maybe it's something else. Maybe Garth is getting her out of the country. Like, I don't know. I don't know what this is, but I'm willing to open my mind that it's not so straightforward as you called the eyes and the eyes are coming, the end.
On the flip side of that, it was sus to me that Garth showed up to this family matter in uniform. I know that you mentioned like everybody
seem to have any other outfits.
Yeah, but he's wearing like the harness thing and the earpiece and all that.
They don't seem to have any other outfits, Paul. I mean, look at Mr. McKenzie. I said the same thing to you. I was like, why is he wearing like suit pants, a white button-down shirt, and suspenders when he's supposed to have just woken up like 1 second previous? At least Paula, she looked a little disheveled and she looked like she kind of had like a wife robe on, like it was a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they have other outfits. Even the girls, they were running away in their school uniforms. Like, they didn't have any, like, there's no like play clothes or casual day clothes. No one's wearing jeans or sweatpants at any point. But I'm with you on the whole thing. But also, I would say they set it up to where, I guess, why wouldn't Mackenzie call Garth their personal guardian? Although, again, if he's like scheduled to be married, doesn't it seem like they would have been already assigned a different guardian to be hanging out at their house? Because he should be moving on to the commander track. Like, why is he still on front door duty?
Yeah.
And also a commander, and also the only one to be called when there's been a murder and all this stuff. Like, one guy was called. Mackenzie may have called Garth intending to call the eyes, but he may have actually called some other group unwittingly. we're going to back it all the way up and start talking about some of the foreshadowing that we got for everything that was happening in this episode, because this was one of the most layered, complex, deep episodes that we've gotten. I would say by far this was my favorite episode, beyond just like this play where you can go and read all about it and like really add a lot of depth to everything that was going on. Beyond that, we had a ton of foreshadowing, like just from a storytelling point of view. I mean, let's start off with the bloody water. I mean, we started off right away. There's some sort of consequence that has happened in the Pearl Girl dorm area where somebody, a man, has been killed. We don't know anything about it, and I find that fascinating that we know nothing about it at all. But it's this vague description that like a man basically has been killed and we need to mop it up, and we have like the bloody mop bucket water that we start off with. That
just like a footnote to that scene, I think we could notice that the first time Daisy saw that, she freaked out,
right? And
now she's just slopping around the blood with a mop,
right? Real casual.
She's hardened up.
She has, absolutely. So then of course with the dentist, we have spitting the blood into the sink when Daisy spits into the sink. We've got her brushing her teeth later, and she spits out blood again when she's brushing her teeth. And of course, all of this leads us to the bloody bathtub water at the end. So much bloody water happens throughout this entire episode. Additionally, when Daisy is getting pinned as a green pin, and I knew that just because Becca was feeling pissy with her, I knew she was going to stick her with the pin. But when I said it, I said, oh my God, she stabbed her with the pin. And Paul's like, oh my God, what? Because like I literally said, Becca stabbed her. Like, it was like, oh my God, like the foreshadowing, perfection, Bruce Miller. Like, I see what you did there. And it was all over the place. And the fact that she's stabbing Daisy, the one who ultimately brings her father down, is of course, like an extra layer of wow to the whole situation. Let's get to Daisy though, because she is really our beginning of this entire unraveling.
She decides to ring the bell, to let everybody know that she has gotten her period. And you can tell like she's actually put together the steps, like wives to be, go see the dentist. Now her plan got accelerated probably more than she was expecting it to.
Oh, definitely. Her face was like, wait, today? Like, I think she wasn't ready to do it today, but it all happened so fast. What do you think about like the plumber up makeover scene?
Any song from Pulp Fiction is sort of loaded for me. So anytime I hear it, it's like my little dog ears like go up, like what am I listening to here? And having it applied to this scene, girl, you'll be a woman soon. The Pulp Fiction version was Urge Overkill, but I think this might have been the Neil Diamond original. I think it just kind of wrapped the scene in a sweetness in an episode with so much that was going to go bloody and horrible. But
I think that, I mean, again, if you guys are Pulp Fiction watchers, it is one of the most bloody movies and has blood all over the place all the time. I don't think of that movie without thinking of blood. Either trickling blood here or blood in the car, blood on Uma Thurman's shirt.
Yeah, that's the scene where she takes the drugs and
I know the scene is. Yeah, P.S. Pulp Fiction was like our first date, or if not very close to our first date. I know all about Pulp Fiction. I dressed as Uma Thurman to an Alamo Draft House with a needle sticking out of my chest with the blood on my chest with my shirt open. Like, yeah, it's a whole thing. So again, just the stabbing though. Think of that. Think of again the foreshadowing. Pulp Fiction, him stabbing her in the heart with the needle to bring her back, right? After the drug overdose. So yeah. Oh, I mean, Bruce Miller, we see you with all this. Look at you. Again, one of the most layered episodes, you guys. There was stuff to dig into here. So we get to the dentist's office. Everything is going to plan here for Daisy in theory, but he doesn't do anything. He actually doesn't do anything. Does this surprise you? What did you think?
He seemed to act with girls that he was familiar with, as has been their dentist for years. That doesn't make it better. That's just an observation or an assumption that maybe that's why. The camera work in that whole scene was like really close up on Daisy's face. And anytime you get that kind of close-ups, just the micro expressions of whatever that actor is feeling transmit to the viewer very clearly. And you can feel all the tension and anxiety and anticipation of what might happen in all of those scenes. Just he's like reaching across her, which is kind of awkward anyway.
And like she's jumping and everything.
Yeah.
It was nerve-wracking. But did you expect him to do something? Did you personally? You didn't?
No.
Okay.
That's because this scene is like retasked from the book. This happens to the dentist, but it's not Daisy that does it. Aunt Estee does it because Aunt Lydia, like we mentioned in the previous episode, has taken action and told this guy needs to be taken care of, and I need you to go do this in order to make that happen. So I was fully expecting the outcome that happened here. It's just that they changed characters. Did you think that he was going to make a move, or do you think that she was going to stage the encounter?
You know what? I didn't exactly know because he started the talk. Like, oh, you got your period, man. Like, as soon as he started that stuff, I was like, he's going right for the grosso talk. And so to me, like, he kind of did do some of it. He didn't do the touching, but he absolutely did all of the, like, you're crossing all the lines.
The monarchy talk?
Yeah, monarchy. You guys with the monarchy. I do not need to hear this stuff. I don't even know what to say. And I know everyone who's out there is like, it's natural and whatever. I know, but there's certain, like, terms that just kind of give you like the anyway, he did step over the line, like verbally, emotionally. He did step over the line in talking about her body like that and talking about all those types of things. Like, he did abuse her in a verbal, emotional sense, right? He's an authority figure. He's talking to her about personal things. She's a young girl. Like, this is all very inappropriate. So a little bit, I am going to put my flag in. She was abused in that scene. She wasn't physically touched, but he absolutely made her feel uncomfortable, said things that were out of line, was making her feel so jumpy that even just reaching over to get the water cup was making her jump out of her skin. Like, all the things to me means like he was terrorizing her mentally, emotionally, with his words, so I'm going with anyone who says like she actually wasn't abused. I say, look harder, you guys, look harder at that scene, because he used his authority to act like a weirdo with her. And that is the point. And whether he went even further, I don't know, doesn't matter, because he was already acting like a weirdo.
How did you think Daisy handled the ants? Because we've seen how Vidala would steamroll Hulda, and Agnes is too scared to talk. She says some things, but not enough. Whereas Daisy's approach, I mean, I kind of loved it, actually.
I 100% loved it, too. I loved that she said the exact phrase she needed to say, which was, I'm not confused by what happened. Boom. Don't tell me again that I was confused. Do not try to do this to me. I loved it. I also loved that, like, when she said about touching his penis, and the second that she said that word, Estee and Vidalia head down immediately, like completely uncomfortable. Lydia, oh no, eyes locked.
She looks over at Aunt Vidala like, buck the fuck up already. Come on now.
Well, because she knows where Vidalia came from. She knows that that's Vivian from school. Like, you never heard that word before. Quit acting like you don't know where we all came from. Like, cut it out. Like, I'm very proud of Daisy for doing what she needed to do. I think it was bold as hell. Now, I thought that her telling Garth that it didn't really happen really bothered me. And I don't want to skip over the Estee and the moment of like her begging for forgiveness and all that stuff to Daisy, because there was a moment there where I felt like Estee, again, being a previous Pearl girl, has this different relationship with Daisy. And she's also been like the softest one, calling them her bunnies and all this stuff. Like, she very, very, very much
plumb her up aunt.
And she was also the one, the aunt at the dentist. Right? Yeah. So it actually like literally happened on her watch as far as she was concerned, because she could have technically sat in the room. That's one part that kind of pisses me off about the Aunt V and everything that went on, and maybe even Aunt Lydia. Because if you're going to take Daisy to the dentist after two girls have already reported, why didn't Lydia say to Estee, sit in the room with her?
That seems pretty natural.
I mean, yeah, like and that's the part where, like, as the audience, I'm sorry, we cannot buy in that Lydia was going to take care of it. We can't, because she changed nothing about protocol that would have protected the next girl. So why would we think that Lydia was going to take care of it? No, I don't feel it. From the tea I'm talking about, you guys, if you're thinking like, what am I talking about? When they were having tea outside at the engagement party and Agnes was like, oh, I should have known that Lydia was going to take care of it. I say no, you shouldn't have known, because if Lydia was going to do something, then Estee should have been instructed to go into the room with the dentist and sit and be a chaperone in there. That entire part was like, Estee asking for forgiveness. What do you think?
She believes, she agrees with you, actually. This happened on her watch, and she is taking that extremely seriously. And she was very sincere. Like whenever I see these Gilead authority figures, I always question like how much of their motivation comes from fear and how much comes from being a true believer. And I don't think either one of those things really matters here. She actually felt responsible for what she believed happened to Daisy.
I really did feel that Pearl Girl connection. I really did feel the fact that she was the one that was physically there when it all happened, and she had to be the one to like sort of like see Daisy's face and absorb all that energy, and coming from Agnes too, and the fact that there was like, you know, other commanders, people in the office, and all the things were happening. Like I think like Estee had like the biggest trauma of everybody in that moment, because this was news to her, it seemed. Mm-hmm. And she was going to have to handle everything. Like she was the one who was like supposed to be in charge. And yet like she didn't have really any power in that situation exactly. You know, the commanders were there, like they had more power than her, and, you know, to snatch him up or to do something.
Daisy ran to the men.
Thank God.
Protect me.
Thank God. Says. I think that, I mean, honestly, I think she handled it brilliantly in that. I really do. I think running to the men and being, I mean, perfect. Freaking perfect. Because it implicated them too. It was like, are you going to turn your back? You can't just act like you were a witness to it. I came directly to you. You're a participant now. That is brilliant. Perfect. Handled it perfectly.
In the discussion with Garth that you brought up just a second ago, and our mention of sacrifice and all that, where, you know, she came to this situation with nothing to lose, but not really sure how deep she wanted to go. There were reasons for her to be scared, and she wanted to go. Like, her sacrifice was over, she thought. But no, she found like she needed to go deeper. I guess I'm looking at Garth, who had nothing intelligent to say about it. He just stomped off. And I'm thinking like, he's been raised by a prominent commander. Yes, he's in Mayday, so there's risk there. But what is he really sacrificing in comparison? Like, does he even understand what Daisy could have been thinking of, or why she could rationalize her decision?
Well, okay, let's try to take it from his POV for a moment, okay? She didn't just tell like, hey, there's been this dentist situation and I'm the one that blew the whistle. She said, I made it up. It didn't actually happen to me, right?
Yeah.
Now, from his point of view, not only do you have this dentist situation, who is also your fiance's father, but also you are in charge, you're the handler of Daisy, who's supposed to be like under the radar collecting information, who now has the biggest spotlight in the entire
very much on the radar
country on her right now. Everybody within 100 miles is going to know that Daisy the Pearl Girl has something to say. And I think if you're the handler, who again, he's only like 20 years old, you've got to be sitting here like thinking like, good God, like not only do I have to deal with my fiance's father and everything that's happening here and my fiance, right? But also my charge, who I am supposed to be keeping safe and I'm supposed to be getting information from, has now blown up her spot completely, made her like the center of attention of the entire school. You know, she's sitting in front of the aunts. She's got an aunt kneeling in front of her. None of this is supposed to be happening. She's supposed to be blending into the woodwork and just soaking stuff up. So you can understand why he walked off in a huff. Like, oh my God, this has gone so sideways on me. Now, I don't know why she felt like she should have told Garth that nothing happened. Again, I even would argue that. If we were in a court of law, I would say you were abused, Daisy. You were. The things he said to you, the way that he was even moving around you and everything, the fact that it was making you so jumpy because of his words, because of the things he was doing, he was acting predatorily. And I don't think that anyone can really debate that. Mm-hmm. So to say nothing happened to me feels like actually that was like erroneous. And I don't agree with that. But what was the point of saying that to him?
There was nothing to be gained exactly except making her point. Someone had to step up.
So maybe that's it. Maybe like I even am willing and able to make up a story and sell it to all these people. Like, do you think it was almost like a little braggy then? Like a little bit like,
yeah,
and like, look what I'm willing to do. How come you're not willing to do more? Like kind of pushing on him?
Maybe, because like we're going to discuss in the Aunt Lydia, Commander Judd scene where they discuss the fate of Dr. Groves. I think there's this pervasive, don't rock the boat, don't test the system here. We know there's problems. We know there are little things here and there that we'd rather not happen, but we're just not going to look at those too hard so that we can just keep the whole thing going.
Right. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, let's get into Lydia and let's talk about this meeting with Commander Judd. I actually appreciated how straightforward this whole thing was. That for the most part, and we're going to get to the he was such a good dentist, but the straightforward nature of like Aunt Vidalia kind of trying to weasel her way into that conversation, which was screaming vice principal vibes. Like, it was just like, you're not important, get out. Like, this is between the superintendent and the principal. Vice Principal Vidalia, head on out. Like, this isn't about you, dude. And obviously she's showing, and I think we're angling for season 2, that she is going to be pushing to be more in charge. You know, I can see her pushing, kind of pushing those boundaries already. The actual discussion between Commander Judd and Lydia, the whole like, we are perfectly capable of handling this. And both of them being like, get the hell out of here. I loved it. And I loved the just straight talk. This dude did this. Commander Judd being like, I think a salvaging is in order. Tell everyone who hasn't watched Handmaids or doesn't remember what a salvaging is, because they didn't actually explain it.
It depends on the crime, but it is essentially a situation where the people get to enact a punishment on the offender. So the more famous ones from the first show were called partisecutions, and men who were thought to have raped a person would suffer at the hands of handmaids. And it was pretty brutal stuff. So a salvaging, I think, is a lot like that, but maybe with different participants, right? So maybe not handmaids, but maybe this kind of feels weird to think of, but the girls of the Lydia school, where remember the Judd says the girls will get their pound of flesh. Mm-hmm. They kind of mean that very literally in Gilead. What do you think of Lydia asking for the salvaging to occur after the wedding?
I understand that she's thinking that they can still somehow keep the plans afloat here.
Salvage?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Then I was like, I can't say salvage again. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. And that's maybe that optimism bias that has been brought up throughout this entire season, that like, how, Lydia, do you think everyone's going to continue to move forward? Like, Becca's father is going to be torn apart literally by her classmates, and Becca's just gonna get married and act cool. Like, what? I mean, that's really a stretch on her part, that anything could move forward normally after all this stuff is happening. I feel like she was trying to minimize, I guess, the entire thing, but it's impossible when you have the man across from you saying a salvaging, which again, literally being torn apart by her classmates till he dies. I guess it spoke to Lydia's like frame of mind in terms of thinking, just keep the train on the tracks, keep the train on the tracks.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward. And that was so wildly off base, like, and such a misread of this group of teenage girls.
I think as the viewer who was wondering whether or not future Agnes was correct in the previous episode of whether or not Lydia was going to act, her postponing the punishment might draw some question marks to be like, why would you do that? So I'm going to go with that once Becca and Garth were married, the stain, I guess, of the father and being put to death or whatever his punishment is, it's not like it could undo their wedding. You know, they just sort of move forward after that, building their own name and story and all that. But if it happens before the wedding, then there's a great chance that the Chapins might be like, we'll wait for next year. I think that's the fear.
I mean, there's lots of things to worry about. That Becca's dad being revealed is going to ruin everything for Becca beyond just like not getting married just then. But like the whole family could be ostracized out of the whole community, you know, like who knows? I don't know how far reaching it goes. Do they start to say, well, how does the wife not know that this man was doing this? So she should be punished too. She doesn't know she lives with an abuser. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could get weird and extrapolate it all out and everybody in the family could be blown up by this whole thing. So I get what Lydia was trying to do. And also, I mean, we have to talk about for a second, just because we're focusing on Lydia, about how she looked at Daisy and said, wow, lucky for you, he ripped your blouse. And lucky for you, you had witnesses. Huh.
Yeah.
What do you think of that whole part? Like Lydia's got more in her mind here.
Oh, yeah. If you didn't get it, she was saying, I know what happened here. Like when she said, I'm not going to think about it too hard, that means we're not going to talk about it again and it's not going to come up anymore. But I know what happened. I know what you did. I'm harboring this hope that Lydia is actually the ultimate Mayday plant. That feeds the pairing of Daisy and Agnes, you know, in this unconventional Pearl Girl assignment to a plum that never happened before. I thought that was all very contrived by Aunt Lydia because she's in on it, right?
Right.
But that hasn't been proven. And that discussion between the two, I wonder if that was just like a message to be like, don't pull that shit again.
I don't know what the message was. I mean, I'm really trying to think about that, except for just that I'm smarter than you and I know what's going on here more than you think I do. Like just sort of that sort of like in general, I know what's going on in my school. I know what's going on with my girls. I know what's happening here. So don't try to act like you're more clever than you really are. Like that's kind of what I was getting. But again, like sort of going back to like, if you know Daisy's doing that and then you have Judd say, let's do the salvaging. And then you're pushing to push it off. I'm struggling with Lydia. I'm struggling because then also we had the engagement party where we were supposed to glean that Lydia was going to take care of it. It's like maybe she is just so unbothered by the situation because she's witnessed so much and she's seen so many awful things that girls getting touched by the dentist is like a 2 on her scale in the violence and horrible torture that she's seen happen to people, including things she's inflicted on people. Maybe that's part of the theme is just she's not showing enough for me to feel like anybody should understand that she's getting the gravity of the situation for the girls. But I guess you have to temper that with, yeah, but look at all the things that she's dealt with. And there's someone being horrible every day. They literally just cut a guy's hand off, you know, at the beginning of the season. So like she sees stuff every day. Mm-hmm. Is that, I mean, does that jive with you? That like, why Lydia, like, why is she cool pushing it off? Why is she cool talking in clever sentences, but not really saying, we'll take care of this, just saying those words?
Well, I think it's that these are events that have popped up in the midst of her grand plan. I'm sticking by that she's the ultimate Mayday plant. So she has an idea of what she wants to do and how she needs to do it. And having these upstarts come along and mess it up for her or draw the attention to the wrong place. Like she doesn't need the eyes of the country on her school.
Oh, that's true.
Where she, in my belief, is masterminding this or providing information to Mayday or whatever it is that I think she's doing.
You're right. I get all that. I do get all that. Like there's no, I mean, it's the same thing with like why Garth marched off. Like, I don't need a spotlight on us, on you, you know, the person I'm handling. Like, none of us need the heat of anybody's attention. So I get what you're saying, that Lydia is like sort of handling it in the same way. Like, let's just keep our powder dry. Things will work out the way that they're supposed to work out. Things will happen with the dentist. You won't have to deal with him, you know, all those kind of words. But I think that was asking a lot of the teenage girls, you know, who were affected and victims themselves, and that it wasn't really being acknowledged. Like there wasn't, like Daisy was just left to walk off. It's not like anyone like put a blanket around her shoulders and was like, let's deal with this. You know what I mean? Like she was just sent back to class.
I think when you're Lydia, and I'm assuming that she has this big plan, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that her whole philosophy, even though it changed after Jezebel's, her whole philosophy since the stadium has been to prepare these girls that don't have a choice to live in this world.
Right.
So that means she has gotten accustomed to losing a few along the way. Kind of like a cattle drive. You know, like as long as most of the herd gets there, all good.
Okay.
That's where I'm at today with that. But
okay.
I will need more. Like I need like the last scene of this season to be like I need to meet my handler, Garth says, and his handler is Lydia or something like that. You know?
You think? Do you think we find out who his handler is in the next episode in number 10?
I was just spitballing there.
Ooh, no, I know, but because I mean I do feel like there's got to be something else. Like we need to world build a little bit more. Anyway, I do want to talk about the line, he was such a good dentist. I think that's one of those things that people say when they're willing to turn a blind eye to so many things that a bad person does because of something like that, where you say like, oh God, he was so funny. He was so whatever. Like you say these other things and it's all like dismissive of the fact that no, the only thing that matters is he abuses children. And after that, there are no good traits. That's it. That's it. You know, and it's like, but people say that in real life. You hear that stuff all the time.
His value as a dentist in the minds of Judd and the other commanders superseded the effort it would take to look into the rumors and potentially find out that there was a problem and then have to deal with it. And that's what bothers me about that he was such a good dentist line, was it betrays a lot more than just I had heard rumors. It seems to me like
the fact that a commander would hear rumors.
It was an open secret.
Rumors from who to about what? Because if it wasn't the girls telling their fathers, like what do you mean you heard rumors? Was the dentist bragging to other men?
Maybe
about stuff he was doing?
Maybe Penny said something or previous wife.
That's what I'm saying though. But like, oh my God, how are there rumors? Gross. Again, willing to do nothing until somebody crosses this line and does something dramatic and huge and big that I can't be ignored anymore. Which only goes to Agnes's point of like, how in the world was she supposed to know that Lydia was really going to do something? When here we have Commander Judson, even he knew that stuff was going on and no one was going to do anything. Mm-hmm. So no, Daisy had to do what she did. Somebody had to do something big and dramatic and at his office and in front of all these other witnesses and all the things. Like that is the only way this man was actually going to be having to face any consequences.
When you mention Agnes and dealing with consequences, it seemed like most of this episode, she was scrambling to find something to hold on to. You know, she was questioning Daisy. She was having to deal with Becca, who was having huge emotional swings and responses to things. And she has that hyperventilating scene in her room. I think she was just holding on for dear life in this episode as things were coming together that she didn't have the background to be able to put together all by herself. You know, like the idea of like, what are you here for Daisy? She doesn't have it in her mind that a child spy exists. And that's causing her like a dissonance in her mind. Something is wrong and I don't have a name for it. Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. What was your read on Agnes in this episode?
I feel like Agnes is dealing with a lot of information coming at her. I think she is dealing with her own abuse and the thing that has happened to her. She is now a part of this Daisy situation after she just tells Daisy about what happened. She does seem to understand that something is completely off with Daisy. And the whole, when she said like, you're not a Pearl girl, like they would do anything to fit in. That's got to also be coming from, I think, being informed from the part where she told on herself way back about like using the Lord's name in vain and stuff like. Remember back from the episode 1.
Yeah.
Like there's something like always Agnes has been like, there's something a little bit weird about this one. Like when she said like, why did you tell on yourself? Like, why did you do this? You know, like she wasn't like, oh, what a good pro girl. You were trying to stay in line or whatever. No, she didn't view it as that. It was like, you don't understand the consequences around here. Like what the hell is up with you? So I think Agnes has had her as like a question mark this entire time. I think that the phrasing that Daisy uses when she said, I'm an experiment, I thought that was loaded. There was something that she was almost trying to tell Agnes. What do you think about that? Why be so provocative?
Maybe she was still hepped up on the emotion she got from slapping down Vidala a couple minutes ago.
Maybe so. I think it's dangerous is all I'm saying. Like, I think that she already stood there and had to answer to Agnes for like the last couple of minutes about what about this? What about this? You don't seem like a pro girl. You're not acting right. You're not doing the same things that I expect, blah, 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 blah. And then to be like, I'm an experiment. Like, it's like, what? Stop trying. Like, I don't know, Daisy, girl, you are one of those people who you're right. I feel like her head was like inflated and she was like feeling real braggadocious about all that she had done and was like too full of herself. And between telling Garth, like, what's the problem? I just made it all up. And like saying that and then being like, I'm an experiment. Like, stop trying to be so interesting. Like, stop trying to provoke thought about you. That is the opposite of what you should be doing right now.
Well, the thing about lying, right? Like, I know that truth isn't exactly the main issue that we're talking about, but once you tell a lie, you do have to keep track of it, right? And her not giving the right emotional weight to Agnes right then, theoretically, she had just been abused, right? But she comes out and says, yeah, fine, whatever.
Well, and didn't include herself in the count. Like when she was like, well, you and Hulda. And then Agnes is like, and you.
Right.
And you.
The lie requires more than...
Like you got to keep up. You got to keep saying like the three of us were
at least victims. The three of us.
Right. I don't know. I think she's playing fast and loose with Agnes in a way that feels like it can only be negative for her. I don't see anything good happening for sure. Because Agnes is going to keep pulling on those strings. Now, here's the deal. It could be okay in terms of like she realizes that Daisy is someone that she can link up with in this, whatever the next step is, you know, whatever she's going to do next, because we're going to have fallout from the Becca of it all, which we haven't even talked about. And we're far into this podcast and we haven't said what Becca did. But let's just jump into that because I really think that some of this stuff is going to be answered by what happened with her and why Agnes is going to have to probably turn to Daisy in a different way.
Let's proceed with Becca's chapters of this story. Where do you want to start? With just the beginning or do you want the punchline even?
I don't know. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of the episode with Becca and Agnes doing their loom work, because this was a really interesting example for me where any character in any story can take the facts and make them into whatever they want the conclusion to be. So she was taking this set of facts that, you know, she felt like Daisy was a spy, but she went to spy for Aunt Lydia. She's just out here ready to rat on all of us. Like that's what she's here for. She's here to go around and tell all our flaws to the upper management, right? Like that's her job. She's the Dwight of the company, right?
Right.
And also the second set is you don't come to my house anymore. And that's because you've changed because you hang out with Daisy. Again, a terrible conclusion that she has made. She does not make the conclusion that it's like, oh, because my dad molested you. That's why you don't come to my house, right? So I found this a really cool, like, if you stop as like just understanding storytelling, where you can take like different people and say, look, they all had the same set of facts and look at how they are very sure of what the conclusion is, and they can even back it with evidence that they think is true.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought this was clever because the whole thing I think speaks to this larger story of Gilead and larger story of what's going on with these girls, of like, you can take the same set of facts and one person can think it goes this way and one person can think it went that way. And it's like, you have the two sides to a story and then there's the truth,
right,
part.
yeah.
It's like this little scene, as small as it was, as small as this conversation was between two teenage girls, revealed all of that and showed like how easily you can follow what you think are the facts and come to a bad conclusion. So we move on to they're having these terrible feelings and everything, and she has this dinner with Garth, right? Like, Dad is going to come home, and we've got Becca and we've got Garth.
I'm surprised Dad came home.
I'm really surprised Dad came home too. I would have thought they would have like held him or something, right?
This isn't America like we know it. The ability to go on the lam in America, people can do it. They run from the law. It happens every day. I don't get that sense in Gilead. No one would want to harbor you because of what would happen to them. The abetting aspect of crime, no one's interested in. Maybe that is why they let him go on his own recognizance, even though they know that they're going to deal with him severely in the near future. But still, I don't like that reason that I had to come up with. I understand that narratively we needed him home for what happens to him to happen to him, but just the logistical aspect of it, I don't like.
I agree. I feel like it was odd that he would be allowed to come home given everything. I feel like they're like a knee-jerk society. Like, as soon as something happens, the eyes just show up and swarm. There's no due process.
No, accusations are enough.
Yeah, is a determination of guilt right then and there.
Yeah.
So, essentially, the dentist's due process happened in Lydia's office between Judd and Lydia with no information from the dentist. Lydia had witnesses, but Judd hadn't heard them. He just had to trust Lydia when she's like, yeah, and two other girls have made an accusation. He didn't say, what were the accusations? What did he do? Nothing. He didn't even care. It didn't even matter. It was just like, done. It was kind of a surprise that they would allow this much rope, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't they have just immediately dealt with it? Or at least held him somewhere.
Right.
Just say, like, we're going to keep you here for now. Again, I told you, I was like, why didn't they say like he has to go to like a dental conference or something? Like, come up with something to say why he's not there. And I guess I was also surprised that he came home, he said he was dealing with a work matter, goes in the other room with the wife, comes back, and in front of Garth and Becca, why they're coming to report to the children, like, hey, everybody, we just came back from a meeting in the other room. We better explain to the 13-year-old what's happening. Really?
Well,
why?
Because Becca was going to go to school the next day, and a certain amount of the girls were going to already know the accusations against him. So I guess I understand that decision.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have had a little more conversation with your wife besides
I would have a
30
lot.
seconds that you ran in the other room?
I feel bad for the wife. She is a character that's swept up in something that is way beyond her control and is going to have a massive impact on the rest of her life. Here she is talking about like meat. Like, that seems to be like her conversational ads. She's talking about the meat in this episode, this scene, and the later scene she's talking about meat again.
She's not talking about meat.
I know, she's just filling the air because she's just nervous.
Right. So quit saying she's talking about meat like it's like that. It's the part what you just said. Like, yeah, the nerves are running high. It also makes me wonder what the hell the wife knew. And I'm not blaming her. Don't get me wrong, you guys. I'm not in any way adding her to the mix, okay? But, she wasn't crying. She wasn't running out of the room like, you abused children? What?
It happens every day that partners don't know the extent of what partners do.
Oh, 100%. But when you find out, which she just did in the other room, you don't have like a freak out. You just come into the other room like flustery, I guess. The whole thing that they felt like the need to come into Garth and Becca and say anything other than dinner's canceled, we need to reschedule. Becca, we need to talk to you. I don't understand just the vomit of words that started coming out of their faces. Mm-hmm. And even Garth's like, I gotta go. Like, this is freaking weird. And like, what are we doing?
Yeah, something about this episode in terms of time, I think it was the shortest episode of the season. And while watching it, it felt like much longer than that. But then you go back and review, Actually, it was only 38 minutes. So then it kind of says like they could have maybe strung it out a little bit more had they wanted to, but maybe it was like about pacing. They wanted to keep the tension on Dr. Grove's situation in a way that if they had done it in multiple scenes, it'd have been like, well, but the pacing is ruined, and we really needed that tension there throughout, like filmmaking reasons rather than narrative reasons.
I'll agree with you. Okay.
In the scene where Becca runs into the school and confronts Daisy, the part about that scene that I liked the most was Shu.
Me too. Raised voices?
Who knew that Shu was actually like the Eddie Haskell of the group?
Sort of. But she also is just like the fixer in like so many ways. Like I loved that.
Sketch us. It'll last longer.
That line was so awesome. Like for all of you guys who don't remember, and you guys might be young or older and you don't know this, there was a time when people would say, take a picture, it'll last longer.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Right. But they don't take pictures here, I guess.
Take a picture. No, they don't.
But you say that, wait, I'm saying that, even as I'm saying that, I'm pausing because that's not actually true. We know there was a photograph with the Waterfords and June. Remember? They're like sitting around the couch and it was like a formal photograph.
There's a big contrast, though, to like the proliferation of creating media that we have today in America versus what they have there in Gilead. And I don't know that women have access to any of it, even when it is used. Sketching is, I think, as close as they could get, and dangerous because there's a pencil in their hand that might lead to writing if they're not careful.
Oh, God. I just thought it was a clever way to sort of update for the Gilead sect of like, how would that phrase be used in Gilead? I thought that was very funny. I hope everyone in the writer's room was laughing and they were like, what would be the take a picture to last longer? What would be the equivalent of that? And it was like super funny. Like,
and she circles the wagons.
Yeah.
These are her friends.
I loved it. I thought it was an awesome moment when she just in general, when she said like raised voices, like trying to just cover it up like immediately. Loved all of that. The scene that we have out on the balcony outside, we have this moment where Agnes reveals that this is true. Like, this is stuff your dad's doing. And also, has he done anything to you? Becca seemed pretty sure that it hadn't, although I don't know. I still don't know.
The way that Aunt Gabbana ended the scene prematurely, like it didn't have time for the emotional resonance to actually kind of settle. It was still sort of like mid feeling.
It was.
And she comes and whacks one of them with her, it's like a riding crop or something.
I don't know why she's walking around with this. I really wish she would knock it off.
For that reason. Exactly, for that reason. And I guess that's probably very super intentional to leave us feeling like them, like very unresolved about this admission we've been building up to for a long time with Agnes.
Right. I agree with you. I think that it was intentionally left dangling there, that it was unresolved between the two of them. We don't 100% know what Becca's response was, of course, until later. Only in that moment did we not know what was going on, whether or not she took Agnes's word to heart or whatever. There was a moment there where we weren't sure. It does play out to where we know what Becca thinks about all of this. So let's just move forward to that. They start off with dinner with the reheated roast, which is, I thought was a cool way of sort of saying like, and the conversation continues. This is a continuation from the other night, right? So the reheated roast felt like we're just continuing that same conversation.
Some people say that reheated meat is chewy, but I think this tastes just fine. She's just so nervous. I feel so bad for her.
I feel horrible for her. I mean, and everybody in the room, minus the doctor. So I was surprised that Dr. Groves actually looked at Becca and was like, say something. I don't know if I was accused of doing something wrong and everyone was being quiet. I don't know that I would be so quick to be like, everybody say something about the situation. I think I might actually be fine with it being quiet because I don't really want to talk about it.
Only the theoretical Caroline. The real Caroline absolutely would want to dig right in.
Well, what about you?
I'd be like eating my gamey meat.
I know you wouldn't ask our kids, hey, kids, why don't y'all start speaking up about what you think happened with Dad?
No,
So what do you take of that?
Very accurate.
What do you take of that he wanted to like deal with her head on?
Because he had this stock denial ready. Like I was saying about a lie being anchored in truth, a good lie being anchored in truth. This is a lie of omission. He's very specific about, I did not touch that girl.
That pro girl.
Same difference.
No, but specifically, he like named her.
And that's what I mean. Too specifically.
I agree. Because I think most people would be like, I've never done anything to anybody, right? I think you would be that.
Absolutely. That would,
like,
yes.
You would like broaden it out. You would be like, I've never touched anybody. I would never do that. I've been a doctor for 20 years. I've never done anything to any of my patients. Like, this is ridiculous. But you picked that up right away, that the specificity was
bothered
the wig
me.
out.
Yeah. It is how someone who is guilty would deny that. You didn't, this act, I didn't do this act.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Okay, so we go to the room and we have Becca using the scissors to prune those flowers. Okay, I don't know what movie or TV show it was, but I swear to God, I have seen a scene where a woman is doing a move like that, looks directly into somebody's face, and then takes the scissors and stabs herself in the neck. I have seen that move somewhere. I don't know where. And I thought that's what we were going to see. I thought Becca was going to stab herself in the neck.
If you're listening to this and can pick out that movie, because I'm picturing it too, but I don't remember what it was.
I'm sure we can Google it and say like someone stabs himself in the neck and we'll find it right away. But that was what I was anticipating. I felt like these scissors were going to be used to kill someone, but I thought it was Becca. I did not think she was going to go kill her dad. At what point did you realize what was happening?
I was too wrapped up in it. I mean, if you look closely, they're not really hiding the scissors. They're not accentuating or emphasizing them, but she is carrying them. You can see it in the shot in the hallway.
Mm-hmm. She does kick off her slippers, so we know she's like being extra quiet.
But the way that they cut it together, where they don't show the stab, they show the pullback. And the reaction, it's like it's already happened before you can process it.
I agree.
The damage is done before you know that it happened.
It was a very interesting camera work in that scene because they don't pull back like you would kind of expect and show you like her bringing her arm back, like kind of Psycho style, where you see the whole thing and you see the arm coming down. It wasn't exactly like that. And maybe it is like Psycho style, where like a little bit you get these close-ups and the pullbacks and the close-ups and the pullbacks.
It implies like no hesitation, like it was decided a few minutes ago that this is what's going to go down and I'm just doing it. That's all. Very different than like this, like you were describing, like that's the Psycho. I know Norman Bates didn't hesitate either, but still there was just that cinematic moment of raising the knife.
Right. There was no raising of the scissors. Like you're right. Like the first thing that we really see is her kind of pulling it back out of his chest. In fact, you don't even know where she stabbed him until the camera pulls back almost with the second stab and you realize the first one was right in the heart. Like because they didn't actually like show you that initial stab. Fascinating. I don't know why they chose to do it exactly that way. It was unusual. It wasn't the way we normally would see a scene play out.
Chest stab with something as awkward and kind of shallow as pruning shears. I think that would be a really hard stab to make. If you were gonna stab somebody, there's a lot softer parts to do it.
His neck.
His
neck.
So I think having it in the heart was like a broken heart. It was her broken heart right there on display.
Right. I agree. And those scissors were not just like regular old scissors though. I mean, those were like industrial heavy pruning scissors. I think you would have some heft. And they would be very sharp. So I think that was actually like a really good tool to use.
If you haven't looked ahead to the title of next week's episode, it is secateurs. And if you look up that word, it's pruning shears.
Also, I mean, just in you saying pruning shears, like the idea of pruning someone out of your life. Like the idea of like cutting off the dead or rotten parts.
Layers, man.
It's layers. This one has good layers. It really does. Okay, so we have this moment where we're all like shocked, like, oh my God, Becca, of all this whole situation, of everything that we worried about in the previous episode, where I sat and talked about like, well, this is going to be a real conundrum for Garth, because how is he going to act when it's his fiance's dad? Blah, blah, blah. Guess what? None of that came into play because Becca acted on her own. There was no what's going to be the justice for the dentist and how are all these competing feelings going to play out. No, Becca took matters in her own hands, literally, and ended his life. When she puts on the Martha's cloak and she decides to head out to the Martha's bus, I was in shock, but I was like, how in the world is she on this bus? Like, I kept joking with you that there was like the local, the express, and the mind your own business after midnight bus, where apparently nobody bothers to notice that she's not a Martha. And also, where she's getting dropped off at the Mackenzies at like midnight or wherever. I mean, like, where's this bus at? Like, you guys have all seen the way that the Mackenzies property looks. Was she just tell the bus driver like it's a cab?
And
like,
we assume you've ridden a bus, so you know how busing typically works. You don't get to determine the route. It just is the route. We're not supposed to worry
we're not
about all
supposed
that
to care.
stuff.
It's
though.
the mind your own business bus, and so that's all y'all need to know, I guess. I was surprised that she showed up at Agnes's. I thought she was running away.
I thought she was running
trying
away,
to get
but
away.
Going back to that desire to just run away with Agnes, she gives it voice in this episode again. It's like she gives Agnes another chance to say, I want to run away with you. It's sad. It's sad the way that it works out for her.
It's all very sad. And the trust in Agnes that she clearly has, the early layering of this, that Zilla doesn't have a tongue and is able to like be a part of this entire scene with just like her facial features, and they know they can talk freely in front of her and say everything because she can't tell anybody.
Or write it down.
All of that, man, think of how early they had to put that in place for us to now have this character 9 episodes later be a part of this, because they didn't make it the other Martha. Who's also in the house. They made it Zilla, who can't say anything. This entire scene with them, with her trying to, like, Agnes trying to keep it together. What did you think about how she handled it? I mean, she stayed so calm. She managed to take this person who's smiling at her, which Becca is smiling the whole time and telling her, she's not crying, she's not upset, she's smiling. And you're like, you just like killed your dad and you're smiling at me. And like Agnes, I mean, I thought it was amazing how she had that one big tear that kind of came down, and she was just handling it so carefully, being like, let's get you some clean clothes, let's get you cleaned up. She didn't start crying in like a dramatic way. She didn't like grab Becca. She didn't there's 1,000 things that a very normal person would have done. I thought she handled this far beyond her years.
Well, and given that she responded to kind of the stressors of the unknown earlier in the episode by just hiding and hyperventilating.
Right.
So I think it speaks well to her adaptability, and the things that she was facing before were like crises out there, but this is like in her room. She made a decision, and it echoes, like you identified right when you saw it, the Daisy Justin scene from the second episode.
Yeah. If you guys remember that, Daisy was asking Justin to like, let's run away. And Justin's like, yeah, okay, sort of. And then immediately gets his parents. I mean, I think that was, again, foreshadowing for what we should have expected. I knew Paula's face was going to come around the corner. I didn't expect Mr. Mackenzie, to be honest. I thought they were going to come down those stairs and that Paula would be like privy to where the Marthas were and privy to like noises in the house and stuff like that. I don't know. She just seems like the surveilling mom type.
Well, they're doing a great job in this show of portraying teenagers as teenagers. There's no shortage of shows featuring a cast of teenagers as the leads. However, the way that they are written and the way that they behave is really like they are little adults that are forced to go to school and live with parents. But other than that, they talk like adults, they deal with each other like adults, they drink, they have sex, all the things that adults do, but in teenage bodies. But in this show, these teenagers are acting like teenagers. Like, I don't know what the fuck to do.
Right.
I need to talk to my dad.
Right. And trying to come down the stairs, quietly together and keep, I thought that the way that Agnes tried to keep Becca, we're doing this together. Like, don't freak out. Don't do anything. Don't go sideways on me. I just think she managed it very well and stayed her friend. Like, stayed like, I'm going to stay by your side until I can't, basically. What did you think about all the wordplay of like, we called your fiance, like not we called the eyes, not we called any guardian. We called your fiance to come get you. That actually sounded pretty good, right? Like, oh, you call my fiance? That seems like a good idea, right? He loves me. We're about to be married. You can't call my parents. I don't want you to be calling anybody at that house.
They're down a man over there.
So, but what did you think about how Mr. Mackenzie said that and how, like, I think that was very clever writing.
It's like the way that you treat a skittish animal, you know, and one that might bite, but that you still have to deal with. It's rare that you just walk over and deal with this animal. You want to give it its space, but still get it to do what you need it to do. Not that a human's an animal, but still kind of the same kind of, I'm dealing with some, like a tissue paper kind of experience here, you know, like if I go the wrong way, it'll rip and it's over if that happens.
Well, she's already killed someone else. Like, let's be real. Like, let's really, really be real. We don't know if she has the shears in her pocket, and she's already killed her own father. Like, we don't know what she's capable of. And I think that that's fair to leave on the table. Like, it's not so much that, you know, you're not comparing her to an animal as much as you're comparing her to someone who has just committed murder, who now you are dealing with, and you don't want to have them in any way get upset and do anything that you don't want them to do, right? That whole scene, I mean, it was heartbreaking. When Garth comes to the door, there was still sort of a moment of like, okay, all right, you're going to go with Garth. This seems like maybe okay. And then the Wraiths come in their ballet dancing choreography, which I think is another nod to the play. And now we hadn't seen the play, but the way that they said that dance and like avant-garde movements and stuff was like part of the play, the way that they were like, their faces were covered and they were wearing all black, and the way that they were doing those little kind of foot motions, like they didn't come running at her, like they came like flowing at her and snatched her up the way they did and picked her up like in the air like a wave, right? Like she was like above them, like body surfing on their hands, not like a convict which you would pick up under the armpit. You know, you don't lay them flat like that, you know?
Yeah, right.
It was very dance-like, very choreography
like
heavy.
Stage play, right.
Mm-hmm, which I think is echoing back to this play. Again, we don't watch the movie, but I think based on all the description of it, the way that they used song and dance and stuff, it sounded like this could be some sort of little homage to that. Going back to the very beginning of our whole conversation, I'm not convinced that these are necessarily the eyes proper, like because they weren't dressed like anybody else we've seen. They seem to be women, which made me think, could they be the ants? Could they be Mayday? Could they be anything else? Like, I want the door to be open, that this isn't just so cut and dry, that because it didn't look anything like when they took Talia away. They didn't body surf Talia out of the room. No. You know, it all looked different. It all felt different. And so I'm very curious about what this group is and where she could be going.
And in one more week, we'll find out everything.
I can't believe it. Already we're going to be at the finale, episode 10. You guys have been amazing listeners. I know we've gotten some comments from Robbie Scott. She wrote in that she listened to all of them back to back to back. She was going to be listening for our episodes as soon as they came out. So thank you so much, Robbie, for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This is Caroline.
And this is Paul. If you like this podcast, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to it on iTunes or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you found us, so that others will have an easier time finding us in the future. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening.
Pod Clubhouse.